verse 14. And Jesus, when he had found a young ass, sat thereon, as it is written. Verse 15. Fear not, daughter of Zion. Behold, thy king cometh, sitting on an ass coat. Jesus is fulfilling scripture, just as it said. That's why he came. Everything Jesus is doing and has done is to fulfill the scripture. What was said and what must be done, and it's still being fulfilled to this day. The New Testament is a continuation of the Old Testament. That's why you got to know what the Old Testament says. If you don't know what the Old Testament says, you don't know what's being fulfilled. That's why many are deceived. They think Jesus is coming back for the whole wide world and he's only coming back for Israel. But if you would read the Old Testament, you would know that. All right? So that's who Jesus is coming back for. He's coming back for Israel, the seed of Abraham. Hebrew Israelites. And specifically the tribe of Judah, because that's the tribe that he comes from. So he's fulfilling scripture by riding on the ass coat. Verse 16. These things understood not his disciples at the first, but when Jesus was glorified, then remembered they these things were written of him, and that they had done these things unto him. You see, it's written. Everything Jesus did, it was written about him. The disciples, the followers of Christ, that's what he called us. That's who we are. We are disciples. We're not Christians. Hebrew Israelites of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Judah. They didn't understand at first. They didn't know what all this means because they hadn't really studied the Old Testament that much. That's why you got to go back and study the Old Testament. But Jesus had told them. So when he was glorified, then remembered they these things that was written, and that they had done these things unto him. It had to be done. Everything that was done had to be done to fulfill the scriptures. That's why Jesus had to suffer and die and be rise again on the third day. That's why we are scattered, because the scripture said we was going to be scattered. That's what the Lord said back in Deuteronomy. I'm going to scatter y'all. You don't want to listen? You don't want to obey? I'm going to scatter you. That's why we're here in this country today, because we didn't obey the Lord. Everything is according to scripture.